All right, so you've sent us a bunch of articles on Tesla's latest event, and it seems like you're pretty curious about this whole robotaxi future they're painting.
Yeah, it's definitely got people talking.
To put it mildly right, I mean, every time Elon Musk steps on stage, it's spectacle. But this one felt different,
Hmm.
almost like he's pushing harder on this whole autonomous vehicle thing than ever before.
It's interesting. You're right. This wasn't just about some incremental update to their existing tech. This was about a fundamental shift in how we think about transportation.
Exactly. We're not talking about cars that help you park or stay in your lane. We're talking about cars that drive themselves. Full stop.
And not just any cars, mind you. We're talking about purpose-built robotaxis. The Cybercab. Have you seen this thing?
Oh, yeah. Gullwing doors, no steering wheel. It looks like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Right. It's a pretty bold statement. Like they're saying the future is driverless and this is what it looks like.
And you know what? Part of me is like, yeah, let's do this. But then the other part of me remembers all the times Elon has promised us the moon and come up a little short. Remember when he said we'd have 1 million robotaxis on the road by 2020?
It's hard to ignore that track record, right? Musk has a history of setting these incredibly ambitious timelines. And while it's tempting to be cynical, you also have to wonder if that unwavering optimism is part of what propels Tesla forward. If it's what allows them to achieve things other companies wouldn't even attempt.
It's like he's playing a different game entirely.
Hmm.
One where the rules are constantly changing and we're all just trying to keep up.
That's a great way to put it. But even if we set aside the timelines for a moment, there are still some massive hurdles to overcome before we're all hailing robotaxis.
Like what? Give me the rundown.
Well, for starters, the technology itself still has a long way to go, achieving true autonomy, where a car can handle any situation on any road without human intervention. That's incredibly complex.
More complex than just slapping some sensors on a car and calling it a day.
Way more complex. We're talking about teaching a machine to interpret its environment, make split-second decisions, and navigate a world that's full of unpredictable variables. Humans, other cars, weather conditions, you name it.
And that's not even getting into the whole regulatory nightmare. Can you imagine governments trying to wrap their heads around insuring driverless cars?
It's a minefield. And then there's the whole issue of public perception. Are people even ready to share the road with driverless cars? There's still a lot of distrust and fear around that idea.
It's interesting, though, because a lot of that fear stems from a lack of understanding. People see these headlines about self-driving cars malfunctioning or getting into accidents, and they jump to the conclusion that the technology is inherently unsafe.
Which isn't entirely fair. I mean, any new technology is going to have its growing pains. Remember when the internet first came out? People were terrified of using their credit cards online.
Oh, yeah. My parents still refuse to do online banking.
Exactly. But look at how much things have changed. The internet has revolutionized the way we live, work, and connect with each other. And while it's not without its downsides, it's hard to imagine life without it.
So you're saying self-driving cars could be the internet of transportation?
Potentially. But it's important to remember that we're still in the very early stages of this technology. There's a lot of hype, a lot of speculation, and a lot of work to be done before we're all cruising around in robotaxis.
Which brings us to Tesla's approach. They're doing things a bit differently than everyone else, aren't they?
Yeah, their whole camera-only strategy has definitely raised some eyebrows. Most other companies in the autonomous vehicle space are using a combination of cameras, LiDAR, radar, you name it. They're basically throwing everything but the kitchen sink at the problem.
But Tesla's like, nah, we got this, with just cameras.
Pretty much. They're betting big on this idea of end-to-end learning, which basically means they're training their AI using massive amounts of data collected by those cameras.
Okay, so for those of us who don't speak fluent tech, what exactly does that mean?
Imagine you're trying to teach a kid how to ride a bike. The end-to-end approach would be to just put them on the bike and let them figure it out through trial and error. No training wheels, no explanations, just pure experience.
Ouch. Sounds kind of rough for the kid.
Well, it's not exactly that simple, but in Tesla's case, they're essentially feeding their AI tons and tons of real-world driving data and letting it learn the relationships between what it sees through the cameras and the correct driving actions.
So instead of explicitly programming the AI to recognize things like stop signs and lane markings, they're just letting it learn those things on its own through sheer exposure to data.
Exactly. It's a bold strategy. And to be fair, they've had some success with it. Their autopilot system, while not truly autonomous, is pretty impressive in terms of its capabilities.
Right. But is it enough? I mean, what happens when the AI encounters a situation it hasn't seen before in its training data?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's one of the reasons why some experts are skeptical of Tesla's approach.
Like who?
Well, there's Aurora, for example. They're a self-driving tech company that's actually led by a former Tesla engineer. And they've been pretty vocal about their belief that a multi-sensor approach is essential for safety-critical systems like self-driving cars.
So it's basically Tesla versus the rest of the industry on this one.
In a nutshell. And it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
Speaking of fascinating to watch, one thing that was noticeably absent from this whole event was any mention of that rumored affordable Tesla, the Model 2.
Ah, yes, the Model 2, the electric car for the masses.
Right. It's been the subject of rumors and speculation for years, but Tesla's been awfully quiet about it lately.
I've got a theory about that.
Oh, do tell.
I think Tesla might be worried about the Model 2 cannibalizing sales of the Model 3, especially with all the hype around robotaxis.
That makes sense. If you're already planning to hail a robotaxi, why bother buying a cheaper Tesla?
Exactly. But then again, if Tesla really wants to achieve its goal of accelerating the transition to sustainable energy, they need to make their cars accessible to a wider audience. And a more affordable model is key to that.
It's a tricky balancing act. But then again, Tesla's never been afraid of a challenge.
That's for sure. But here's another interesting wrinkle to consider. Musk has talked about this vision for the future where parking lots become parks and cities are designed for people, not cars.
It sounds idyllic.
Right. And a big part of making that vision a reality is having affordable electric vehicles that are accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy.
So the Model 2 might be about more than just boosting sales. It could be about transforming our cities and our relationship with transportation.
Precisely. It's about thinking bigger than just building cars. It's about building a future.
Right. Now we're getting into Elon Musk territory, thinking big picturing the future.
Hey, someone's got to do it.
True enough. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've still got a lot to unpack here. Like those Optimus robots. Did those things freak anyone else out?
Oh, we're definitely getting to those. But first, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Or should I say, the Cybertruck in the garage.
The Cybertruck. You mean that futuristic angular beast that looks like it could survive an apocalypse?
The one and only. People have been waiting for that thing to hit the market for what feels like forever.
And yet, still no Cybertruck in sight. What gives?
Well, according to some reports, Tesla has run into some production hiccups.
Hiccups. For a company that's supposed to be at the forefront of innovation, that's not exactly reassuring.
No, not exactly. But to be fair, the Cybertruck is a pretty radical departure from anything else on the road. It's not surprising that they've encountered some challenges.
I guess so. But you know what they say? The devil is in the details.
And in the case of the Cybertruck, there seem to be a lot of details to iron out.
Yeah. You know what's funny about the Cybertruck, though? It's like this weird symbol of both Tesla's ambition and their struggles.
Totally. It's like they had this grand vision for this revolutionary vehicle, but actually bringing it to life has proven to be way more complicated than they anticipated.
It's like they got so caught up in the look at what we can do phase that they forgot to actually, build the thing.
The classic engineer versus designer dilemma, I guess.
Maybe. But speaking of look what we can do, can we talk about the Optimus robots for a second? Because that whole thing was straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Oh, yeah. The robot butlers, serving drinks, walking around on stage. It was definitely a flex.
A major flex.
Yeah.
But also kind of creepy, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure I'm ready for a robot to be bringing me my coffee.
Well, Musk did say he wants to get rid of those dangerous, tedious, and repetitive tasks. So I guess fetching coffee falls under that umbrella.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But you have to admit, seeing those robots in action does make you wonder, how far away are we really from a future where they're just part of everyday life?
Right. Like, are we talking 5 years, 10 years, 50
Right.
years?
Exactly. And what are the implications of that? I mean, do we all just end up living in a real-life version of the Jetsons?
Yeah.
With robot maids and flying cars?
Well, Musk did say he thinks Optimus has the potential to be bigger than the entire car business.
There he goes again with the bold claims. But seriously, do you buy it? Could robots really become that transformative?
I think it's definitely within the realm of possibility, but it's important to remember that what we saw on that stage were still prototypes.
They weren't exactly ready to move into our homes and start doing our laundry.
Not quite. There's still a lot of work to be done in terms of dexterity, AI, and just general, roboting.
Roboting. I like it.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's easy to get swept up in the hype and forget that we're still in the very early stages of this technology.
Exactly. Remember, self-driving cars. We've been promised a driverless future for years, and while progress is being made, we're still not quite there yet.
True. And robots are a whole other level of complexity.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're talking about replicating the human ability to perceive reason and interact with the world. It's a monumental challenge.
One that Elon Musk seems pretty determined to tackle, though.
Determined and perhaps a little overzealous at times. But hey, that's part of what makes him such a compelling figure. He's not afraid to dream big. Even if those dreams don't always pan out exactly as planned.
I'll say, but you know what? Even if Optimus never actually makes it into our homes, the fact that Tesla's even working on something like this is pretty mind-blowing.
I agree. It's a sign that the future of robotics is closer than we might think. And it's definitely something worth keeping an eye on.
Absolutely. But for now, let's shift gears back to something a little more grounded, shall we say?
By all means, lead the way.
Yeah, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from robotaxis to humanoid robots and everything in between,
It's been quite the deep dive.
to say the least. So where do we even go from here? I mean, what's the takeaway for our listener who sent us all these articles about Tesla?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that the future of transportation is very much in flux.
That's one way to put it.
We're on the cusp of some pretty major disruptions, and it's anyone's guess how it's all going to shake out.
So basically, buckle up because it's going to be a bumpy ride.
Something like that. But I think it's also important to remember that technology is ultimately a tool.
It's not inherently good or bad.
Exactly. It's how we use it that matters.
So the question isn't just what kind of technology are we building, but also what kind of future are we building with it?
Now you're getting it. And that's a conversation that goes way beyond just Tesla or even just the tech industry.
It's a conversation we all need to be a part of.
Absolutely. Because the choices we make today will shape the world of tomorrow. And that world could be amazing.
Flying cars, robot butlers, the whole 9 yards.
Or it could be something completely different, something we haven't even imagined yet.
Okay, now I'm really curious.
Yeah.
What's your wildest prediction for the future? What's the one thing you think people will look back on in 50 years and say, wow, I can't believe that actually happened?
Ooh, that's a tough one. But if I had to guess, I'd say we'll probably look back and be amazed by how much we took human connection for granted.
You think so?
I think as technology advances and we become more and more reliant on it, we're going to start to crave real human interaction in a way that we don't even fully understand right now.
So maybe the future isn't about flying cars and robot butlers.
Yeah.
Maybe it's about rediscovering the simple things, like spending time with loved ones or having a meaningful conversation.
Maybe. Or maybe it's a combination of both high-tech and high-touch.
The best of both worlds.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, what really matters isn't the technology itself, it's the human experience.
Well said. And on that note, I think we're going to wrap up this deep dive. But before we go, I just want to say a huge thank you to our listener who sent us down this rabbit hole of robotaxis and humanoid robots,
It's been an enlightening journey.
to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
And to everyone listening, remember, the future is not predetermined. It's what we make it. So let's make it a good one. We'll catch you in the next deep dive.